Hello and welcome to Sounding Board, a community access television presentation of Seroptimus International of Novato. My name is Dr. Madeline Peters, and this is a special presentation today which addresses the involvement of Seroptimus International with the United Nations, specifically the Commission on the Status of Women. I'm going to have Yvonne Simpson introduce Seroptimus and our presence at the conference right now. Seroptimus International is an active organization connected with the United Nations, and Yvonne Simpson is the current president, and she is from New Zealand.
Hello, I'm Yvonne Simpson, and I'm president of Seroptimus International. It's an incredible privilege to be in this position. I'm an ordinary Seroptimist with an extraordinary opportunity and an extraordinary responsibility. But what I get from doing this is making the connections with Seroptimists around the world. And one example would be there's a young woman from Kosovo who is now studying in Canada in a home because of a connection with a Danish Seroptimist, a Seroptimist from Venice, a Canadian, and the European Union. I mean, it brought us all together to produce one outcome, which was a girl being able to take a STEM subject in Canada and have a completely new future. Being a Seroptimist, part of a global organisation, brings about miracles, and I thank all Seroptimists for being part of that.
The Commission on the Status of Women is a principal global intergovernmental body and is dedicated to the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of women. It was established in June of 1946 and has been an ongoing body representing women and gender equality since that time. The purpose of the Commission on the Status of Women is to promote women's rights, documenting the reality of women's lives throughout the world, and helping to formulate global standards on gender equality and the empowerment of women. So this was the 61st session of the Commission on the Status of Women that took place at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The themes of the conference, the priority theme was women's economic empowerment and the changing role of work. And it included the challenges and achievements in the implementation of what are referred to as the Millennium Development Goals for women and girls. They are referred to in United Nations language as the agreed upon conclusions. Articles that the Commission on the Status of Women then advocates that the United Nations promotes to its member organizations. Seroptimus International is very actively connected to the United Nations, and the work of the Commission is established and carried out at the United Nations office in New York. There's a team of 4 Seroptimus International UN representatives in New York that cover gender equity, sustainable development, financing for development, trafficking, migration, education, aging, and peace and security. So Seroptimus International has representatives, and these representatives were present at the conference. So we have Seroptimus International has an active role in its membership and liaison through specific people who work with the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations. Now, before I start on my reflections, I really want to thank Seroptimus International for the honor of serving as a delegate. I was selected as one of 30 delegates from Seroptimus International to attend this conference. It was held March 12th through March 24th. And my preparations began by reading articles to familiarize myself with the work of the Commission on the Status of Women and Seroptimus connection, as well as issues facing women throughout the world. I had a mentor in this process, and I really want to acknowledge her, Linda Whittong, former Deputy District Attorney of Marin County and member of Seroptimus International. And she's been involved in the United Nations for more than 4 years. And she became my reference librarian on all things United Nations. The articles that she sent, I read, and the emails from Commission on the Status of Women provided a context for me to understand the nature of this conference. The conference event started on Sunday, March 12th with a panel held at Hunter College. And it was clearly right there that my white privilege bubble burst, listening to the panel of experts summarizing discussions. The focus was women's rights and gender equity in the changing role of work. Radhika Balakrishnan is the founding director, faculty director, Center for Women's Global Leadership at Rutgers University. And her information was really poignant and hit home for me. Only 4% of the people who have PhDs in economics are women. And she advised two things, as well as just helping us understand that the leading thinkers for the economy, if primarily they are men, may or may not have the interests of women and the understanding of women's needs at hand. But she felt we should encourage more women to earn an advanced degree in economics. And secondly, that economists had to learn how to explain the principles of the economy better to the public. Juliana Ricker, Chief Operating Officer of Edelman, she's the Chief Operating Officer, the COO of a tech company, and she pointed out that fewer than 10% of CEOs are women. And her message was clearly that we need to encourage more women as entrepreneurs. Esther Mwara was founder and executive director of a project called Groots in Kenya. And I want to mention too, I didn't take notes through this panel presentation, but the information that they presented was remarkable and deserved my attention. Esther said, when I remember her vividly saying, we don't want pumps, we don't want filters. What we need is to rethink women and the connection to water and what the intersection of women and poverty is. And she described a project in Kenya in a rural population where instead of digging wells and pumps, her group worked with a utility company to get water piped to a rural community. And this act really changed the lives of an entire village. These women with access to water could then plant crops and take care of their children. The children, because they were cared for and had food, could go to school. Her group also taught these women how to build houses and the rudiments of plumbing, so that then there was a stable structure for this village and its inhabitants to thrive. The most remarkable thing that struck me is she said her group was able to accomplish this in 4 years. And she pointed out that we need women in leadership positions who sit on the boards where the utilities operate, and the women can be the voice for the communities, such as getting water to the community and the impact that water has on turning a community from substandard living conditions to thriving. There were other conference speakers and interviews, and I'm going to mention them right now, and you'll see a short clip of interviews I conducted. And you saw Yvonne Simpson, who is the international president, but she also spoke in a brief interview on her local project, a project in Nepal. So now we'll break to hear her description of her Nepal project.
I'm Yvonne Simpson and I'm president of Seroptimus International. We have an amazing project in Nepal. We're going to educate, empower and enable women and girls to get an education, to get skills development. For those who have been traumatized by sex trafficking, we're getting counseling, and then we're providing them with leadership training. So this is a chance for us to assist women and girls in Nepal after the earthquake. Thank you very much for the support that everybody has given it. I'm absolutely delighted with the progress.
Another interesting speaker, Jacqueline Casato, is a lecturer at Kenyatta University. And her focus, her emphasis was on developing entrepreneurship, and particularly entrepreneurship for women. And this is where I began to understand the changing role of work, because we cannot just prepare people for jobs that probably are going to be taken over robotically. We need to develop people who can think for themselves and establish businesses. So we'll break now and listen to Jackie's very important words where she highlights how it is women who transform society.
My name is Dr. Jackie Kisato. I am a lecturer at Kenyatta University in Nairobi, Kenya. My work is about training young ladies and gentlemen to become successful entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. I think, in my opinion, a successful nation needs young entrepreneurs that have a vision for the country, and people who engage in business must create a difference. I advocate for more women to go into entrepreneurship. It is women who transform society. If you educate a woman, she will change the whole community. But if you educate a man, sometimes you don't get the same impact. So I advocate for women entrepreneurship, to give them an open mindset to be job creators. I also think they become very creative innovators when they go work in organizations. I believe that if women get an opportunity to fight in boardrooms, to communicate and make policies, then this country and this world will be a better place. Thank you.
Pepsi Aduku, Seroptimus International from Abuja, Nigeria, offered a really interesting insight and sobering insight on a practice in Nigeria, young girls and child marriage. So now you'll hear, in Pepsi's own words, her imploring us to stop the practice of child marriages and give girls the opportunity to grow into responsible adults.
I'm Pepsi Aduku from Seroptimus International, Abuja. Girls are important. They are people. Girls should be in school. Education will give them a good life. They are not supposed to be wives. We have a practice in Nigeria that is really bad. Children, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds are being forced into marriages. This should stop. This is the time for them to enjoy their childhood, be in school, grow into good adults. So stop child marriages in Nigeria.
Now we have Barbara Horn, one of the leaders of Athletes for Peace, who really talked about conditions that affect women and people of color. So we'll break to hear Barbara's words.
Barbara Horn, Athletes United for Peace here at CSW. We had a few things that we're focusing on, but the two main issues we brought were police violence and advancement for America's poorest women in terms of economics. Police violence, I'll focus on for a second. We're just trying to show the impact, especially in terms of Black communities, on education and in terms of economic advancement.
Now turning the corner to beginning to understand the language of the Commission on the Status of Women. There were some terms that helped provide some background or context for all of the events that occurred for the 2 weeks. One of the terms was civil society, and we're all members of civil society. We may or may not be involved in government or in other institutions. But we all have a voice as defined by the United Nations, and there's a place for us to respond, to comment, to advocate. So that's where the agreed upon conclusions become very important, not only in terms of tracking its history since 1946, but making sure that those agreed upon conclusions carry forward year after year and become the standards by which the Commission on the Status of Women urged the United Nations to then urge its member states to make sure that women's and girls' rights are protected. Head of household. From this first session, I began the process of rethinking the role of women in families and with an international perspective. And the common assumption is that a man is the head of a household. And in countries where work is scarce, perhaps the head of the household leaves the family unit and moves to another city or moves out of the country for work. And this occurs among Pacific Island nations, where a number of people leave, perhaps for years at a time, to work in wealthy countries. Children may be left under the care of a grandmother, an aunt, or another sibling, or no one. What happens when the male and or female head of household move for work, leaving the children in care of someone else. How do these people survive? How does their community support them? Does their government support them? Does their government provide services? How do these services vary from country to country? And how are services allocated? In communities where women do not have much status, equal status with men, then it's possible perhaps that these units, which are headed by a female, may not be counted or entitled to services. And this is an issue that we have to address as part of civil society. How do we identify, acknowledge, and provide services to these other units who may be head of household? Meaningful work. And this is brought out in the whole focus of the convention. In the robotics age, as we must be aware that as technology advances, that robots replace repetitious tasks by humans. And so in considering the changing role of work, we must think carefully about the preparation of work. And this is where Dr. Casado's emphasis on entrepreneurship really comes into play. As business leaders, women take care of their families and influence their communities. Care work. Elizabeth Tang, General Secretary, International Domestic Workers Federation. We don't consider care work, that is, taking care of families, children, as the elderly, as monetized. However, that care work is really important to the economic development of the family, of the community, and of the country. What is the societal value given to the value of care? How is this identified? How does this concept affect women's access to work? What are the universals then around women and economic opportunity? How do women have access to education universally? If they are responsible for the care work and it's unpaid, then what are the opportunities for these women to get an education? How do cultural values influence access to education and then access to meaningful work? As the work environment moves toward automation, then that decreases the number of opportunities for unskilled work. And again, Dr. Casado's comments on entrepreneurship is really important to consider. And a key concept that emerged for me, not only in it was entrepreneurship, but also in the access of women and families to clean water. And that is something that emerged as a theme for the conference and discussions. We'll break now for a video by Marit Verhoef-Cohen, who's the president for Women for Water, and discusses that all-important link of understanding the intersection of women, poverty, and access to clean water.
Hello, I am Marit Verhoef-Cohen. I'm from the Netherlands. I am the incoming president of Seroptimist International. At the same time, I'm the president of Women for Water Partnership. Women for Water Partnership, together with Seroptimist International, are working closely together. At the moment, both the organizations are at the CSW, which is the Committee Status of Women at the UN here in New York. And we're not on our own, because there are 6,000 women who have joined us, and we are all here to show that women are as important as men, because the theme at the moment at the CSW is economic empowerment and the changing world of work. And then specifically for women, because the Sustainable Development Goals that we have implemented a year and a half ago, number 5 is the gender equality. And gender equality also means equal pay. And it means that women have the same opportunities, that they are educated the same way and have the same possibilities to be educated, that there is water for women. So then we automatically link the Sustainable Development Goals 4, which is education, 5, which is gender equality, and 6, which is water. Because if the women have no water, they cannot support their families. If they cannot support their families, they can't be educated, because they have to walk to get the water. And if they are not educated, they cannot find a job. So I think at the moment it is very important to get this gender equality into our world, and we hope that we can make a step forward during this CSW and work together with a lot of women organizations and put women on the spot.
Another part of the language was statistics. And again, this was very interesting for me in that I had to think about how are people counted. Is only a total number reported in a census similar to the United States? Does this number include men, women, and children, especially in countries where women are not valued as equal to men? Does the number include women and men living in urban, suburban, and rural areas? And if the leadership of a country has a vague idea of the makeup of its population, how are services defined and delivered to these people? Another term that came up frequently was disaggregating data. This, of course, is relating to statistics. It's challenging to understand how statistics are compiled from country to country. Do women and girls count as the data we're collecting throughout the world? Are only the men counted? So again, the idea being that a total number of people in a country does not give any government or organization an idea of who their population is. Are these people being counted? And then do we understand who lives in the remote areas? Who are the indigenous peoples? How many men, how many women? And the importance of separating out these numbers in order to determine the degree of care. The conference really offered lots of opportunities to learn about projects around the world. But the voice of civil society carried forth in this agenda as it has in previous years. And again, focused on strengthening the agreed upon conclusions to promote equity between men and women. And they used the term 50-50 in 2030. So by 2030, women will have parity with men in terms of access to education and to jobs, 50-50 by 2030, and also access to equal pay. And this concept does not exist anywhere in the world where women are on an equal status with men. I had several conversations with Margaret Clark, who really is a proponent of advocacy. All of us need to take an advocate role. So we'll break right now to hear her plea to the public as far as getting involved and understanding the nature of problems, the situations in accessing economic opportunities for women, and urging us to take a stand and take a step.
I'm Margaret Clark, Soroptimist International, Great Britain and Ireland, based in Northern England. I believe in human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights, one and for all. Everybody should take responsibility, as little or as much as they can do, to educate, empower and enable opportunities for women and girls.
I received quite an education during the 2 weeks in attending these conferences. And so my efforts now are to carry the message that I've received to others through presentations in my community, and definitely through this as one of the sounding board programs. And I'm practicing doing that right now. I learned an awful lot. Women's access to meaningful work, the concept of unpaid care work and its economic as an economic factor, rural women and conservation, reproductive rights, the systematic of killing of women, femicide, domestic violence, workplace safety, equal pay for equal work, among many other topics. And the conference sessions were an opportunity for me to learn about the grassroots projects that were happening around in various countries. I also began to understand the role of the Commission on Status of Women in advancing the agreed upon conclusions and supporting changes universally. I'd like to close right now because I came away with a new understanding of my own role and my own need, as Margaret Clark points out, in becoming an advocate. And I'm going to end with a quote from Thomas Merton: "Contemplation in a world of action. The way to find the real world is not merely to measure and observe what is outside us, but to discover our own inner ground. For that is where the world is, first of all, in my deepest self. This ground, this world, where I am mysteriously present at once to my own self and to the freedoms of all other men and women, is not a visible, objective, and determined structure with fixed laws and demands. It is a living and self-creating mystery of which I myself am a part, to which I am my own unique door. Thank you for this opportunity to share the incredible experience I had as part of the Commission on the Status of Women conference at the United Nations.